Liberals quietly pushing for a national digital ID. For years, Parliament has rejected a national digital ID as costly, intrusive, and incompatible with a free society. Yet, new access to information records suggest Ottawa has quietly revisited the idea without public debate. Documents obtained by Blacklock's reporter show immigration officials commissioned research into the Canadian passport as a domestic digital ID, effectively opening the door to a national system by stealth. Rather than seek parliamentary approval, officials added a new question to the 2024 Passport Client Experience Survey, asking Canadians how comfortable they would be using a secure digital passport as identification inside Canada. MPs, senators, and the Privy Commissioner were not informed. When journalists noticed, the minister's office declined to comment. The survey found that while most Canadians rarely use passports as ID, a majority expressed interest when the concept was framed as convenient. Critics warn this approach tests public tolerance, not policy merit. Past objections, such as cost, privacy erosion, and expanded police powers, remain unresolved, raising concerns about democratic accountability and transparency. How much weight should survey results carry when questions are framed around convenience?
Shouldn't be allowed to do this.
Yeah.
It's back to the first thing. This should not be allowed. Like this is a policy discussion, and this is something that's been turned down several times over more than a decade. We've been having this conversation and we still have no good answers to the problems. So now they're trying to backdoor it. And now that they've been caught, they're like, well, I got no comment here. Look, it doesn't really matter how you shake this out. So this is the thing that I like to think about when it comes to government policy. And this really goes for both sides. It doesn't really matter who's in charge. When you look at a piece of legislation or a piece of policy, it's not what they plan to do with it today or what they tell you they're going to do with it today, but it's what they can do with it tomorrow. And for people that are supporting these things, like people right now that are supporting the Liberals because it gives them a moral high ground, you have to understand that the tools that are being put in place will eventually be on the other foot and they will be used against you. Eventually, you will not be a useful idiot. And these things will be used to make your life worse. And, you know, the thing is, if you look at what happened in China with the social credit system, people, blah, blah, blah. I understand it's a bit different, but the same tools will be used in a very similar way here. And now it dictates who can travel, who has access to public services. They literally take money out of your bank account if you break the law, like jaywalking. So they have a red list and a black list that's publicly displayed. You're literally embarrassed in front of your peers. It's wild what they're doing there. But the thing is, when you have this kind of power, it just slowly creeps. It expands more and more and more over time. A digital identification gives them ultimate power to cut you off. And we just had this conversation with the Freedom Convoy. We know what they will do. We already know the answer to this. And the thing is, if you give them the system and put it in place and give them, like I said earlier, that tool, when they want to leverage it against you, they will. And it's this in my opinion, is the most dangerous because it covers everything. If everything's digital and all in one space and everything's centralized, first of all, cyber attacks are wild right now. Your shit will be stolen right away. Next is everything's connected. So the way you and I talk online, we're actually pretty rational. You and I don't really go black pill to black pill, but we're not extreme. We don't incite violence. We don't do anything like that because it's not what we believe. But the thing is, because we're not really a part of the liberal camp, we're considered right-wing extremists or disenfranchised, whatever. You know what I mean? So we fall under a dangerous category when you're thinking about how they would leverage these tools against people speaking online. And we know that censorship and communication and understanding how to control the narrative has been a cat and mouse game for a very, very long time. So it started in the public square. Then they started hanging people in the public square. Like that's how it went when you spoke out. So no one spoke anymore in the public square. They were stuck in little corners and pubs and hiding away from people. Radio, the written word, like printing press, television, news stations, Hollywood, you name it. The government's got control over this in some way or another, except they're having trouble with social media. This will essentially snuff it out, right? Because if they go, well, if you speak out, you don't have access to these services anymore. That's how this is going to shake out. I'm telling you, that's the long game here. Whether it takes 5-10 years, I don't know, but just don't let them in the front door. They're vampires. You got to let them in. Don't do it.
what I found most interesting is that it was the Department of Immigration that commissioned this research. And you look at how the UK was just trying to implement this as well, right? They did it through an immigration aspect where they said, well, we're going to implement a digital ID so that people who want to work in the UK, we can use this system.
You have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious that they think, okay, well, the people that are currently being paid under the table, breaking the law and all of this kind of stuff are now going to sign up for a digital ID. It's like, no, they're just going to continue doing the exact same thing. And then all your rule followers will take on the digital ID. So your average person.
Yes.
And this doesn't actually affect the problem you see, or the quote unquote problem.
The gun buyback program.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, we're going to stop violence. Actually, we're going to take all the good people. We're going to take your guns so you can't defend yourself. Same shit.
But this also goes to that manufactured consent idea of that Noam Chomsky had way back. And I mean, this is exactly how I see democracy working. And this is why I definitely see it as a bit of a sham, is because, they frame this in a certain way. Okay, well, this is going to be convenient for you, right? And then they can get the statistic, which I believe, 64% expressed interest in a digital version when framed around convenience.
Of course.
And then they go, well, see, we're now just giving you guys what you want.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
For me, this is very dangerous. They've tried this several times. And even with a liberal stacked Senate, a liberal stacked, House, even a liberal prime minister, and this has been decades. No one wants this. So now they're just finding a backdoor. Be very, very cautious and be very concerned. That's all I would say to Canadians. Figure out how to push back when the time comes, because it looks like it's going to again.
Well, and I think this goes to, whether on an individual or society-wide level, how you discuss it. Because on a society-wide level, I don't see us changing it much. I mean, you could argue that people of a similar value set to us back when debit cards were being introduced saw like, oh, this means every financial interaction is going to be tracked. And this is just the implementation of a surveillance state and all of this kind of stuff, which, I mean, it is.
I don't disagree.
Like they definitely have more ability to surveil your financial situation now.
I like cash.
Yeah. But then it's like, so I don't know if you can really stop these technological advancements. However, you as an individual can make certain decisions that you then don't operate within this system. Like, I know more and more people. Now, again, I don't think it's a majority, but I do know more and more people that are becoming, at least they're starting to romanticize the idea about, more traditional living, not necessarily, I don't mean like, the whole like trad style stuff online, but I mean like actually like homesteading or like building a little community, homeschooling and all of this kind
having
of stuff.
Some independence.
And again, I don't think that'll ever be the majority.
No.
However, you as an individual, if you are concerned about these things, should start working in that path, not going, okay, I want to be in this system. How do I make sure this system is what I want it to be? It's just like, I don't think there's that much control over it.
Yeah, I think you can take a two-pronged approach, but I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that you should, I feel like 80-20. I feel like you can move the needle 20%, and if enough people jump on board and learn how to kind of move policy and enough people jump in and start working for the institutions, maybe over time, maybe we can move it in the right direction. I think it's worth 20% of your effort. I think, like you said, though, the 80% is like, look at the small circle around you, the people you care about, your family, your friends. Start working more towards independence in other ways. Because I agree, the system's fully hijacked, and this to me is kind of like, I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, and maybe it is a little bit, but it does feel like sort of one of the final nails in the coffin. And I understand that it will take a number of years for this to fully blossom into the weapon that I think that it is. But again, like I said with the vampire, you let him in. That's how I feel about this. And I think it's a pretty dangerous step. So they're not quite there. I still think we should push back with some effort. And I think we should mobilize effectively as a group. And I think we should sort of understand the system and how we can try to push back against this. Because again, let's not forget, both the House and the Senate were against these things. So there should be some mechanism in place to try to at least slow it down. But I agree with you. I think the majority of the effort should be put towards finding independence in another arena and just sort of improving your own versatility to sort of have a more self-sustaining life and not have to depend on the system.
Well, and like I said, one of the big things isn't necessarily even just that. It's like the people have, it's the revolt itself, that's their only option. That, again, even just fearing that public sentiment is something that is true when it comes to the ruling class. And so that's definitely why I've put my efforts towards the media space, is because I go, okay, like there's not very many people, especially within the Canadian frame, that are trying to drive that sentiment, not necessarily try and drive an actual outcome of an uprising, but just letting the people that are taking these surveys and that are worried about public perception know that, like, I'm not on board with this. And even, hey, maybe it's not getting this massive group together, but if they see, even on, say, for instance, online platforms, that, okay, this certain thing is, and people are like really promoting it and getting behind it and even just on board with this message, then like, and hey, maybe all that ends up happening out of that is them trying to play a shell game and go, okay, we need to try to repackage this.
Like,
but then you just play the game, and at least at that point, then you're slowing them down. You're putting spokes in their wheels, and it's like you're not just rolling over and letting it happen. And yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, I think that's exactly what's been happening, right? Because they've been trying to push this through for a number of years, and they've continued to hit a wall because they can't convince the people, and they can't even convince the MPs or the senators that it's the right idea. So they just decided to try to find a back door. We figured it out, so we just keep pushing. It's, as I was saying earlier, it's a different cat and mouse game, but it's exactly what it is. And so far, we've been able to hold them off. So I suggest we continue to try to do the same. But yeah, I'm also of the opinion, if the government wants something bad enough, they will find a way to get it through. It's like I was saying with the original online harms bill. I remember saying that, this was years ago. I did a video on this years ago when it first came out as Bill C-63. And I said, look, this is the third time they've tried this. This is not going away. They're going to find a way to manipulate this bill, change it, break it up, do something. They will get this passed. And now they will get it passed through the Online Harms Act as Bill C-36 in some capacity, guaranteed through this term. Now, it's the same thing I see with the National Digital ID. And part of it is, like you said, you can't really deny the growth of technology. You just can't, like a debit card. You just can't do it. So I think it is coming, but I think it's a matter of, hey, continue pushing back. And if they do get it through, make sure it's some bastardized version where things aren't completely centralized. They don't have these kinds of power to cut you off from everything. And there are at least some watchdogs in place so someone can't just fucking yank a lever and you're done. So, at least if that's where we land, they get a bronze medal, not the gold, which unfortunately is sometimes the best we can hope for.